Please welcome our next speaker, Nikita Krasikov. He is a producer in Nexters, and today he will tell us how to create an attractive pitch for your game.
Yes, thank you, Larry, and hello, everyone. Indeed, we are talking about creating an attractive pitch for the game you want to publish and make a success with. So a bit of a disclaimer for now, just to be clear about the content of this presentation. We will talk more on the pitching as a process, including the ways to direct the viewing points for the ones you are presenting your pitch. And we will talk less on the visual peculiarities, like the background colors, gradients, VFX in your presentation. All that stuff is a bit out of scope. So, since I am the first-time speaker at Games Gathering, a word about myself. Producer, game director, lots of games done under my hand. So it's Asphalt Nitro, you probably heard of this game, Dungeon Hunters, Sonic Runners, yet to be released Disney game, and much more. I'm also a big fan of Everyone Designs Jointly principle. This is a principle, in short, about the people who are freely communicating with people. Actually, some kind of culture principle to work with small, big teams. Ping me if you want to learn more after the presentation. I will tell you about it. And so, last but not least, I'm yet amateur, but rapidly developing father of a beautiful girl, Nina. So, the backstage. What is pitching for? And we really tend to think that pitching is for convincing in order to get money so that we could start production and eventually release the game. But it's really for conveying values in order to earn confidence so that finally you will get allies in your vision. This is very important because getting allies is worth much more than money. So what is the purpose? The purpose of your idea always starts with the why question. Look at the picture to the right. You see the beautiful scenery, the car in there. I proudly stolen it from Forza Horizon 4 pitch. Let's imagine you are making the game. This game is just need a vision, need something to be put into the publisher's mind to be ally. And so you start with some samples of text. I have an idea of a cool game with licensed cars and 4 racing tracks in different biomes. Versus, I believe players need meditative racing experience and we deliver it like no one else before. The text to the left is not answering the why question. It's just generic listing of the racing tracks amount, biomes, licensed cars. All of this can be seen in lots of racing games. Nothing unique, nothing by purpose. It is actually just the list. While the text to the right explains the vision, the why, the purpose, why you are doing this game, why you are willing it to become a success, why it will change how people think and accept racing games. So text to the left, not good. Text to the right, good, because it answers the why question. This is the quote by Jason Vanderberg. You probably know him by creative direction of For Honor, Ubisoft's fighting game. He told once, don't pitch your idea, pitch your purpose. Wise man indeed. And here, the talk by Jason. To the left, you can use your QR scanners by smartphones to link directly to the video. And the great talk by Simon Sinek, How Great Leaders Inspire Action, where Simon explains clearly what is why and how it values in selling something to the one you want to sell. Everything I learned from these guys. So I highly recommend to watch this. Now the quote, my favorite quote of all times while creating the pitch. They have only 4 seconds per slide. This is a quote by the former creative director at Gameloft Kharkiv, Dmitry Tarabanov. You might know him from the previous speech he gave on the previous Games Gathering event. Dmitry told this phrase once he investigated why the vice president of Gameloft rejected pitch after pitch and actually idea after idea. After his investigation, my own assumptions and research, there is one thought that came up. The average big publisher, top manager, investor, and the person who can help you with the release of your game has around just 4 seconds per slide. Because they have like tons of other tasks, just very few for these reviews, and overall focus time is not more than 4 seconds. It is just a simple truth. So everything from game pillars, concept details, revenue prognosis, ideas of your monetization, your roadmap, etc., all falls to that number. So be really careful. Put only the stuff you believe will be read for these 4 seconds. Everything extra might be missed. And attention-focused stuff. This really helps you with focusing on these very important things, fitting within 4 seconds. And it starts with the Gutenberg rule. The Gutenberg rule diagram and the Gutenberg rule itself is 900 years old rule, very old one, appeared actually when people got the books, the printed books widespread. And it answers the question of priority and order of reading. The sample is right here. So you see 4 areas. Top ones are more important, bottom ones less important. The bottom right one, terminal area, is good for putting on the links, some kind of call to actions, because this is the area where the viewers are landing before switching to the next slide. So let's go next. This is the Gutenberg rule in action. You see the sample presentation, actually a live one, the pitch about racing game, the slide about the mood, explaining the overall feeling of the game. And so the picture is placed in the intersection between the top and bottom frames and leaning towards the top, the more important viewing area, and the text like shifting towards the right. There is a trick here. The bold ones, the fantasy postcard-like Let's Games texts are highlighted with bold because this is the trick. It drags attention, and I really wanted to drag attention to this. But Gutenberg rule is not the only one to follow. This is a heat map. You probably know that by viewing lots of information about using heat maps on the websites and some even UX of the games, but you can use it and apply to the presentations. So here is an example of software. I can't recall its name actually, but there is plenty in the internet, and you can apply it to your presentation and see how actually the viewing focus is spread among your slides. Here goes the perception of meaning. It is important to talk about it as well because, well, you really care how your idea will be perceived by the ones you are presenting it to. So there are 4 main principles. Clear title of the slide, journal-like descriptions, like open Guardian, open National Geographic, open Vogue, any fancy journal, and you will see the texts which are very, very specifically stylized. That's exactly about this. Next is the catchy references. And final is associative terms. Here's an example of using this. The same slide, but with a bit different composition. You see the top phrase is the very great example of the problem to answer. How possible to convey the beautiful feeling of riding a car in a meditative scenery while still rivaling in a classic race? So that's a classic statement of a question to answer next, and we are answering it with journal-like description. Take a look at the stylistics, the poetic style. We've got away from the stressing edgy surfaces of the modern city's architecture, leaning towards vast natural spaces with rhythmic rounded shapes on fore or middle ground. Very poetic indeed. But it really helps to drag attention, and there is a good test to it. When writing this part, imagine you are putting some of the cuts from this text into the BBC main article. If it fits, it is a good text and it will drag attention. Last but not least is association terms. Here is the fantasy word. The fantasy of this racing game will be driving a supercar through the postcard-like landscapes. So this term is very, very vastly used for adding that poetism, adding that catchy word, which will be definitely remembered once you will read that slide. So don't be shy to use this. Below is the extra in the not primary viewing areas. So if you need some images, some simple graphics, put right in there, because this is where the attention of the viewer lands last. Ending with the hints on the below, on the above. So doing the presentation of your pitch on video, doing it live, doing it by sending mail, hey, I've got a game, please review my pitch, document is attached. All of this is different and you need different documents for this. So consider the format before composing the structure. If you want to use your ads, place them on early slides, because not only that 4 seconds per slide matter, the amount of slides and focus on this matters as well. Usually it is like 5 to 10 slides in the focus, and then the viewer became distracted or less focused on the rest. So you want to place your fancy art, place it on the first slides. And use simple bullet points. It's very trivial, but it works. Don't need to invent anything or complexify things. Just use this. All right, let's move next. Part 2, where we will be more practical. And start with the structure or its mandatory elements. So what you definitely have to include in your pitch. The market fit, the position of your game vision among the competitors on the market. Core game pillars, well, self-explaining. Product hooks, not that self-explaining, and lots of people confusing it with core game pillars or mixing up together, but product hooks are more business stuff of things. I will talk more about it in the next slides. So the revenue prognosis, yeah, it's quite important as well. If you don't have one or it is not possible to have for some reason, just use the target KPIs. Let's say certain percentage of the paying players at day 14. It is good to put this, and it's okay for the ones who view it. It is quite understandable and definable. Product roadmap, well, also don't overcomplexify it. Just use the simple timeline with the 5 to 10 milestones, like the stages of the production, the release, first soft launch, if it's applicable, and some kind of important tests or any stuff which you believe very necessary to put. Available visuals, art direction. So if you have it, use it. Now, optional elements. First one is core loop. It's controversial because it's mandatory for free-to-play, and it can become mandatory if you have some insights or know that publisher will definitely want to look at it. But from my experience, if you are pitching a premium game for Steam, Epic Games, PlayStation Store, etc., you don't really need to put the core loop, because it may sound counterintuitive, but it can distract. Better focus on core gameplay pillars, market fit, and the product hooks. So next is the production costs. Well, not everyone needs it, and it is usually required at the later stages when the pitch is more or less accepted and you have to define the details with the publisher or investor. And a list of content beyond core one, but be careful, you need the selling points only. Don't need to write or get images in line on the textures of the asphalt or I don't know, put in the types of the vegetation of your RPG game. There is no need in that, but there is a need in the things that sell. If we imagine be making a game like Diablo, you're selling the characters at certain classes, so put them in there. Monetization pillars, simplified economy loop, are also optional, but not for free to play, because publishers are really interested in how your economy will develop. Now going with the samples and starting with the core game pillars. So starting with something simple or quite generic, if I can say so, because no publisher will accept a game where gameplay pillars are of nothing seen before. Only, I believe, only Kojima is so powerful to make the games on this, but even he has some ground from the common video game tropes. So use something well known at first to not scare your publisher. Then narrow it with something very close to generic view, the world building. It can be lore, it can be setting. In this case, it is setting, so that the game became more authentic into game pillars. And then finish with the goal and something very unique, something specific to a game. In this case, it is trademarked Pathfinder system, real-time scouting, which allows to find shortcuts in the racing game. So in this case, you answering the question why your game will stand out with your gameplay, why the players will love to play it. Going next to product positioning sample and starting with the Venn diagram. So once you investigated your competitors, like looked at Data.io, Game Refinery, Steam Spy if you're making for Steam, it would be better to structurize your place in the market. And in this sample, you see the three pillars among the competitors. It is class-based ARPG, which is core gameplay in our sample. It is base building, which is meta gameplay in our sample. And it is specific visual style, which is referenced by these two games, Genshin Impact and Tower of Fantasy. And you see our game in the intersection. So this tool, the Venn diagram, is very useful to make it simple and quite visual to understand at the first glimpse where your product at. Now the market fit, and the sample describes the IP. It's better to have it if you are under IP. If not, try to use something very, very strong, like the very well-checked gameplay formula. You can even name this block like well-checked gameplay formula and give explanation below. You need something to convince with its own title. Then go to something under the hood. In this case, it's trending core loop, and finish with something touching the heart, like the collection feeling of the cars in this game. So you're starting again with the IP or like very strong hook for the players, for the business, and then finish with something very personal, warm, and charming. So the market fit sample actually answers the question where the game is positioned and why the business would work. And the less focused part of my presentation, but still I wished to add some because I had requests. Visual appearance, so visual appearance, sorry. If you have something specific in your visual art style, like let's say your game is about the Nordic, runic North with the cyber Vikings, and you have the orange sky. Try to use this as a presentation. Of course, not over-complexify, but you can highlight the runes, the orange elements to make a connection between your main feature of the game, your differentiation, and the visuals of the slide. That's actually about the same. If you have a specific theme is about the visuals, about the lore, about the characters, etc., etc. Use it there, use its attributes. Even if your setting is dark, gloomy, or even black and white, Try to use colors, contrast, make it wise to not contradict with the game itself, but you don't necessarily have to repeat the overall mood of the world you have in the game. The presentation in the game can relate and maybe should relate, but it should be very carefully done. Remember that you're presenting not the game itself with your pitch, but the idea on some visuals, which have to be like at a good supportive basis, but don't have to be stand out or fade away. List infrastructure. Again, about bullet points, use the listing, don't overcomplexify here as well. I'm using overcomplexify too much in this presentation, but it is really very important to not make it too, I don't know how to say this, too stylish, too bright. Just do it simple. It should not distract. It is main point to structure. It is also touching visuals, but differently. Here's an example of how we can use the setting, the sharp objects of the world, the setting itself, in the design. So you see that angles, you see that sharp lines, it is highlighted in the setting and it is translated into the presentation design. Going next, and the slide about the game I played recently, The Flame and the Flood. I found the presentation over the internet. It is one of the design documents shared in public. So as you can see, it is stylized for the tiered journal book, and it is very well set in terms of setting, because the setting is all about post-apocalyptic world. So this framing of the slide about the book fits really, really well. So that's again an example of how you can use the elements from your game itself, from the game visuals into the design of the presentation. So hence, let's sum up what we learned in this chapter. Publishers tend to focus more on hooks. Please do not fuse it with game pillars. If you're targeting mobile, briefly show LiveOps plan. It's important because free-to-play games, mobile games, are focusing on LiveOps even more than on the initial release, because of the economy of the lifespan. Do not use vague description as hooks. Good example, like fun racing game with touch screen controls and multiplayer. Well, that's not a good hook. It's very vague. It's not interesting to read. It's not good to perceive. It creates more questions than gives you feelings or answers. Do not use this. And let's sum up. Pitching is all about conveying values to earn confidence. Heat maps, Gutenberg rules are really your basics. Please use it. It's very important. And overall, use every attention-focused tools, methods you could find over the internet, because 4 seconds, really crucial. First slides, really crucial. Great competition among the pitching. Probably the big companies have like 50 pitches per week. I heard that number from my colleague. He's vice president at one already closed company, but still, I believe his words. I believe that the number of the pitches these guys have to review is great. So you have to stand out and you have to be clear. Catchy references, associative terms, use everything which could describe your main idea. Be catchy, be remembered, be then told to the friend of the person who read your pitch in the words like, hey, I read that great pitch of the game, and so this fantasy-like environment with No Man's Sky flair is great. So they have to be on emotion after reading your pitch. So don't try to put everything there. One great advice you can follow, focusing on mandatory. And game theme can be reflected in pitch design. It is quite useful to do. So thank you for your time. Hope it was not that boring. And it's time for QA.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have not so much time for Kay, but I will ask a few questions. So the first one, just to understand it better, you personally is on what side of pitching? Like you're the guy who prepares speech, or you're the guy who reads speeches?
Well, a little bit of both, because my phase of writing pitches is a long time gone. I'm mostly reviewing it now. I'm
Uh-huh.
reviewing it from the freelancers who want to pitch the game to the company, or want to check with me on how their pitch is done, if it's good, if it's well written, well composed. But mainly, like for the recent 2 years, I mainly review the pitches. I have done one pitch for my game. It was the RPG with the mix of medieval fantasy and sci-fi with the vertical gameplay, like 2 years ago, and that was my last time. So mostly reviewing pitches now.
Okay, so but you're reviewing pitches like not internal ones, but from some outside people, right?
Internal too. Internal too. We have the culture of reviewing pitches, or like one-pager pitches with the brief on the idea of the game in the company. So I participate in that as well. But there are external ones. Yeah, people write me on LinkedIn, and if you wish, you can do it as well. I have my contacts. Well, you can find me by my name, I believe. It's simple as that. So yeah.
Okay, so you have quite wide experience with it. That was very informative, and I think useful. I will compare your list with our pitches that we prepare, because I am on the other side. I'm the man who prepares pitches sometimes. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have only like a few minutes till the next talk. So thank you very much, and for your talk, and have a nice day. And we'll meanwhile run our ads and prepare for the next one.
Thank you to Valery. Thank you, dear audience, the one who viewed this.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Have a good one.